So if I were to pick up the discussion from what you both shared, there are some thoughts in my mind. But before I go there, it's quite interesting the age that we live in, you know. I don't want to take names, but here I am in an organization which is into QSR, quick service restaurants. And we decided to do a visit at a restaurant. So I had this assessor with me, a colleague, and he started questioning the people there, along with the management. There were quite a few people on the other side. We were about 3-4 of us on this side. And he started questioning him, saying, how will your life change in the next few months? And we got some motley group of people giving some answers. We'll get a better fryer, we'll get a better this, we'll get a better that, and not amounting to very much. And he decided to test the waters, and he says, you know, tomorrow there'll be robots here, and they'll be doing your jobs, and guess what, there are 30 of you in this outlet, and they'll be reduced to 2 robots and all. And they kept listening to everything we said, and they had these very funny, they were just looking up heavenwards and saying, you know, where have they come from? So I think there's a lot of overriding scare that's being built up. While having said that, it is a reality today, and we're seeing a lot of things that are happening, and when this will come and hit us is going to be the question which I pose to you all, which is that how does the organization prepare itself for it, you know? Richard, you talk about saying that a very large percentage, and I'm really surprised with that, 30% of your workforce, you feel or you sense or you have data to point that they are underutilized. First of all, my question would be, there's something that needs to be done to the performance management system. But on the other serious note, if that is the case and your attempt is to use the full skill set of the employee and ensuring that maybe you have a system that ensures that and not really the JD. You want them to go beyond the job description and you want them to give a lot more of their own skill sets to the organization. And on the other hand, you talk about opportunities that Infosys has, which are lying vacant. And you talk about a platform. Now, this is a very cogent argument that you're building up for ensuring that there is a so-called workforce is reskilled, regrouped, or they come together and do more for the organization. So is there something that Infosys is actually doing, or some of the organizations in the space that you're in are actually creating, or is it just a wish list?
No. First of all, I think I should correct myself before somebody in the media picks this up. I said 30% of the workshop in industry in general, nothing to do with Infosys. So, sure. Otherwise tomorrow this will be headlines. Infosys said 30% of their workforce is not. So it was a statement for the industry, nothing to do with my company or the industry, because these are difficult times. So I want to clarify that before we move on. Okay, because I need a job tomorrow. I can't just be underutilized.
Are you not part of the conventional workforce?
Yeah, no, I am not. And also the underutilization doesn't mean all of us sitting in this room. I think we are definitely underutilized. So we can, so probably you have the evening to catch up on all your mails and work. But this was a general, see, I mean the 30% could be, it could swing either way. So don't get too much onto that. But if you translate what I wanted to draw out as a point is that if you take this underutilization and put it into productive use, that translates to a significant amount of earning potential possible. So that is the whole concept. So for the person who is doing, like the classic way of saying is that no human should do a repetitive job which a machine can do better, because the human can do something else which probably the machine cannot do. The second part to remember is all this is incremental. It is not a sudden thing. It's not like tomorrow your boss will come in and say, hey, today meet this robo who's going to replace you. It doesn't happen that way. It happens in an incremental progression or change. And for those of you from the automobile industry probably can relate very quickly to what I'm talking about, is because if you see most of the auto sector shop floors, you see a considerably more amount of automation and robots than there ever were before. It doesn't mean that people are not there, because it's just that the people have moved to a different skill set. Instead of somebody actually tightening nuts and bolts on the shop floor, he's actually maintaining the robots, programming the robots. So you have a very different set of workforce which has come in, which means that certain set of skills and people have been displaced. In some cases, they probably have reskilled the same people to do the new job. In some cases, they have replaced them. But in the sense that enhanced productivity means that the human has been trained to do something else, because simply across this country, which you can, of course, those of you familiar with the city will know when you walk outside, is that there are people are buying more and more cars. So it's definitely there is demand for this happening. So that is what translates to, and that means if people are buying more automobiles, it means they're earning money from some other activity which they weren't doing some time back.
Now, to go back to my question, this seems to be a gap that you sense exists. And it could very well be an answer where a large-scale deployment of underutilized skill sets could be used. And they could be matched to the
I'll
opportunities.
probably, since most of the people are from HR, I'll give you an example probably which makes more sense of what I'm saying. So most of you in the who are handling HR on a day-to-day basis will be familiar with answering many questions which employees put to you on a day-to-day basis. What is the leave policy? How many leaves can I take? If I didn't take leaves last quarter, what happens to it this quarter? So what we did in my company is we created a bot. Now the bot has got AI in it, and the bot learns. The more questions you ask the bot, the smarter the bot gets. So now the bot answers most of these questions. So 70 to 80% of these questions are answered by the bot, and the bot gets simply smarter every few months because it's just learning better and more because there's an AI engine built into it. What has happened is that we've not displaced anybody or asked anybody from the HR staff to go. What has happened is that the people who have been freed up from this activity simply have more time to interact with employees, which the bot can't do on a human basis. So this is one example to what happens is, now are the employees happier over this change? Yes, definitely, because you simply have more access and more face time with somebody who was busy answering things which they did not need to do. So this is a good example, bringing it back to the HR space of what technology can do, freeing up the person to do something else. Now, since you are from the hotel industry, I will use one more example. So there is this very interesting hotel chain which is there in some countries which is called Citizen M. Now, you can look up on Google and they have got some lovely videos also. So what they've done is they've dispensed the entire front desk operation to an automation. So the minute you walk into the hotel, you just put in your credit card and the system takes over. So like you can select your room, it tells you which rooms you're available, all those things. But that doesn't mean they've displaced with their people. So what happens is when you do all this activity, the human comes and chats with you. Oh, you are new to this city. What would you like to see? Can I suggest something? So they take away this entire activity, which they simply had no time because they were busy checking you in. So this is another example. Makes more sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely it does. I think the question that's in my mind now is that while you're compacting a lot of work and getting robots or bots or, whatever you call them, to do the repetitive kind of work, but at the other end, where are the new jobs getting created? What is something more that HR has to do today as opposed to what it did not do for years, that freed up capacity would go out there and do it? I think that's what's probably, today you may be saying that you've not made redundancy happen, but who knows, tomorrow the quantum of work that's taken away and being addressed very significantly by the bots could be in the range that you would be compelled to take a decision like that. I think that's where my questions are.
See, I'm very optimistic on this, okay? You can take one view that if you hire a lot of bots, they will do away with the humans. But my view is that if you bring in a lot of bots, they will enhance the people experience to a level that the humans will demand more from the human than ever was before. So for example, what happened to the jobs which HR replaced? The bots took over the HR person job, but the HR person gives employees a much better experience than was possible before. And once people get used to that experience, they are not likely to say, I'll be happy with the bot. I want the HR guy to do more, or the manager to do more, or I want my manager to spend more time on a discussion with me. So there is better experience creates more desire. Like for example, when I was flying into Delhi in the morning, I realized when I probably first started working, there was only one airline and they had only one standard price. You go to Delhi, you find out what time they fly and you buy that ticket and there is no confusion over there. But look at the choices you have today. And once people get used to this, are they going back to the old world? No, I don't think so. So there is definitely more potential because we like things and why not?
Sure. Yeah.
We can have a negative side. Okay? I'm not denying that.
No, I think I'll add on one of the most important. When we learned, at least when I was learning my HR course in school, one thing used to be repeated often is that, the job of HR is actually to make the line managers much more effective and successful, right? I think here is probably the greatest opportunity that we have today. A lot of tools, technology, or just enabling and making decisions with data will enable managers to take effective decisions about people. While I'm absolutely optimistic, I think HR as a function that existed so far, is it the right way of existing in the future? I think we can keep debating that, right? But it empowers a lot of managers in whichever function to make right decisions about people, invest in the right thing, and absolutely, use all that data for the benefit of both the employee and the company. And the employee also, I don't know how we will define it in the future, because again, there may or may not be one manager, because the employee may or may not be in the company, right? As an employee, the way we know today. So I think it's still, even in HR, whatever lens we take, right? I just feel that there is a huge opportunity to use some of this. The only thing is, as long as it does not get driven by this, as long as it enables a lot of decision making and put to the right use, then I think we are good.
So, Dinesh, I have a question for you. This is really coming from the whole concept of the service industry. And you make a very good point saying that no matter what, I'd like to be greeted by a human touch when I walk into any establishment, a hotel, a small hospitality setup. Now, there also, I'm sure there would be opportunities where you can bring in machines. Where are those opportunities? What are you attempting to do? Because it is a very technology-enabled platform that is seeing your growth.
Yeah.
To have the kind of numbers that you talk about is really huge. And technology being way forward, how do you marry these two? How do you continue to have standardized service across and use machines? So the balance of machine and people is a question for you.
Absolutely. I think there's let me take an example of, a lot of what we experience day in and day out, right? If you look at all the IVR technology, right? All of us have experienced in some shape and form, whether it's for, a telecom company or a bank or whatever it is. Now, while it's very efficient, it makes life easier for a lot of people, but at the end of the day, you naturally end up pressing 9, right? Most of the times you end up doing that because you would like to speak to someone who will understand your question, as opposed to saying, press 1 for this, press 5 for this, press 7 for this, right? Either technology has to be really absolutely spot on to say that, when you order a meal in a hotel, it'll go get processed in the kitchen on its own. There will be either some sort of, robotics that will apply there, and somebody that will get in some automated way in which it can get to your room on its own. If it is seamless, and if it is, then you can't ask a question saying, is the food hot? Is it actually, can you add a little bit of sugar in this? Can you add salt in this? It has to be that intelligent for some of these things to get automated, right? Can it not happen? I'm not saying that, but a lot of that level of technology, I think we still have to see and experiment in many places to be able to induct them. There are lots of transactions, housekeeping for instance, right? Can housekeeping be automated? Absolutely, can be. But are all hotels alike, designed alike? And can it be programmed in a way that, you climb the stairs, turn left, take a right, there'll be room number 101. It has to be, again, programmed to that level to make sure that automation happens and housekeeping happens like that. It will happen, but we are still some distance away from doing that. So there are multiple, but there are certain things that we can do today. And Citizen M was a great example that Richard spoke about, check-in, checkout, bill payments, settlement of a lot of things, access, if you go to a big hotel, you get lost because you don't know where the pool is, where, let's say, some restaurant is, all that access can be built in, into your app, and it can ease your life. And the third thing is, does all this technology lead to better customer experience, right? Our data tells us that the more technology we induct for the kind of people that we serve, it actually does wonders for them. Right? 60% of our customers are repeat. Oberoi does check-in when when you walk into an Oberoi, somebody accompanies to your room to do check-in. Right? It is not, and it's a fundamental belief that you have a warm person greeting you, and it'll make your experience memorable. So, we just have to take a call on what is automation, what can be done, what can't be done. What can't be done is just a question of time, I guess.
So what's coming to my mind is a very strange question. You can choose to ignore it or go for it. So we've heard ad nauseum jobs and jobs and jobs and jobs and jobs that technology can enable. Is there any genre of jobs in your organization where you're looking for people and specialized skills today? Sans technology, without technology. Is there anything that's emerging?
We're looking for a lot of people, to be honest. I think technology is just one place, but as a company, I think we are investing in sort of multiple areas. One of the most important areas where we will need, and I think many companies are investing, is data sciences, right? Because it has a very close linkage with how technology can build, or we can build products using technology, but that's with a fundamental insight of what is needed, who's asking for it, why are they asking for it, and what will it solve. I think that is one huge place where we are investing significantly. And like I said, for the kind of company we are right now, it's a little far away, and I completely agree that a lot of these changes are also incremental, and incremental can mean 1 month down the line, 2 months down the line, but still they don't happen as if it's a big bang. It happens organically. So we do something, pilot it, experiment, and then adopt that technology, and we move on to the next one. So in the short term to the medium term, I think we are not encountering a situation or foreseeing a place where people will be impacted.
Very quick, because I think we need to throw this open to the audience. So we're looking for tons of people in various kind of categories. So I will leave out the tech space because we are definitely looking for people in technology, but people who are creative, people who can innovate, people who can think beyond, people who can see solutions to problems which don't exist. There is simply, there is no limit to how many people any company needs at any point in time. So I don't think this entire fear of jobs going away, I think it's a little too exaggerated at this point in time at least.